Good morning, Rajesh.
Hey Sheikh, how are you?
A long time.
I know,
so,
I know.
I remember your very insightful words in 2013 or 2014. Okay, I think Salman has met you there in
Yes,
Hyderabad.
yes, I remember
Okay,
talking to Salman.
so he was so impressed with your wisdom and honesty of advising the young guys and the organizations. He really liked it. Okay,
Thank
since
you,
then,
thank
we
you.
keep talking to you on and off. Thank you for
Yes,
joining the session today, Rajesh.
you're
Very good
welcome.
morning to you. I like your title. I'll just brief about you, but
Sure.
change or die in business and life. I really liked it. So the moment you tell me about this, this is something not necessary for businesses. It is for every individual.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So yeah. So let me give you a quick introduction about yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Rajesh Tedla from US, joining early morning, giving time to us. Thank you very much. Rajesh
You're welcome.
Tedla is a dedicated doctoral scholar at SSBM, integrates his current experiences with ongoing research to craft robust business frameworks tailored for entrepreneurs, small businesses aiming to not only survive but thrive and scale profitability. With a passion for entrepreneurship, development deeply ingrained in his purpose, Rajesh spent the past 15 years advising, coaching, mentoring countless entrepreneurs. Yeah, I see it. I see them very nicely. So through this journey, he has immersed himself in concepts ranging from business stages of growth to leadership continuum, continuously seeking to enhance his understanding of contemporary business practices worldwide by networking with fellow researchers across different countries. Uh, I know, Rajesh. I attended some of the webinars and some work. So very insightful, very practical. Okay, so very practical, very insightful, without nonsense. Okay, so you talk upfront, and then you genuinely help organizations. Okay, so thank you very much. Over to you, Rajesh. So please enjoy talking to audience in India, Middle East, and Africa. Okay, so I wish you good luck. Yeah, please.
Thank you. So I'm
So
bringing my slides here, right?
yeah, so you can present it. Okay, so there is a present screen. Okay, so you have a PPT presentation. So
Yes.
put it, yeah, you can put it into a slideshow. Okay.
Okay.
So
So just
I think, if you put it in a slideshow directly, you can open it here. Okay,
okay.
slideshow,
Okay.
and then you come here and present. Just change the tab.
Give me
Okay,
1 second.
this is little tricky. This platform is little tricky.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this. That's the reason why I'm
This
looking
is
at
this
it
is
this
a
time.
little tricky. Yeah, this is little
Yes, but
tricky.
again,
Just
technology we need to learn, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I thought I
So,
pulled the presentation
and
slides.
then you share. You go to share. Mhm.
Okay, so
Then
it says
there will be
this
some three
one.
buttons, so you can choose a window what you want to share.
Okay, okay, yeah. Okay, here I have this. I first of all it says it can't see me, and now where is my share button? Okay, this is not the share button. It told me to upload, so I uploaded something to my presentation.
That's also one way.
Oh,
Deep,
it's processing.
yeah,
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 it's
Deep,
just
if you are
taking
in
a
the
few
call, yeah, if you can join and help us.
there. No, no, we got it. We got it.
But sometimes,
So,
it will not come in the slide. Yeah, yes, yes, fantastic.
yes,
You got it.
yeah.
You got it. Yeah, perfect.
Oh,
Okay. Yes,
okay.
Rajesh, please
I'm
continue.
ready
Yeah,
to go.
yeah, yeah.
And then how do I change my slide once it is there? How to, oh,
It's
slide.
next
Yeah.
next
Okay.
button.
Okay, I just
24.
wanted to make sure. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, it's working. It's working. Perfect.
okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from and listening at whatever time you have. My name is Rajesh Tedla. I'm the founder of VRT Management Group. And one of my favorite topics is change or die for professional and permanent growth. And what is interesting about the topic is this was designed and developed for growing entrepreneurs and scaling their business. And more, I get into the topic and work with executives and leaders. It is pretty much applicable to anybody, anywhere in the world. And that is where my passion is. Because my own life has gone through so many changes over the last 35 years as an entrepreneur, as a student, as an employee, as a leader, and how this has fashioned my future, my life, and the contributions I made. It was incredible. And that is what I want to go back and share some of those with whoever is listening to this so that they can go back and really implement this for their growth, success, and happiness. So, the first piece of it, if you go back and look at the world today, the business environment, especially, we call it the VUCA environment. There is so much of volatility in the market, in the business world, in the countries. Anywhere you see, any part of the world, there is so much of volatility. And with that, there is so much uncertainty about the future. Right now, if you look at the US market right now, a lot of companies are basically standing still. They don't want to hire a lot of people because they're waiting and seeing where the economy goes. Will it be a recession or not? Some indicators say that it is going to be a recession, some is not. And there's so much of uncertainty there and unclear about the future. And the third piece, C, in the VUCA piece of it is the complexity piece of it. There are multiple key decision factors, and that increases the complexity piece of it. And when we talk about strategy, these four things from an ambiguity part of it, there is no right answer because the things are changing, people are moving, and the VUCA environment brings a lot of uncertainty to the whole strategy process. And that is one of the biggest pieces. If you look at it from your personal side or from the business side, you always want to go back and understand from the VUCA point of view. And in addition to this, the technology advances, like ChatGPT right now, has changed a lot of people how they look at their businesses. So that is the kind of the foundation where each one of us has to operate as an employee, as a person, as a student, as an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. So, irrespective of all of those things, we always start with a strategy. We always go back and say, these are some of the goals we want to accomplish. And most of the time, when you go back and look at successful companies and stuff, they have something called SMART goals. And whenever you're working with SMART goals, you are very, very comfortable with it because you know what you want to accomplish. But when you have the VUCA environment, you take your SMART goals and you need to go back and make them into fast goals. And what does that mean? Let's go back and explore a little more on that piece of it. So, in a SMART goal, basically it stands for very, very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So, if you're going back and thinking of a business and you want to grow your business, let us say, you go back and say, hey, by December of 2025, I would like to grow my business to generate approximately $25 million in revenue. If you are an individual and you want to go back and say by December of 2025, I want to go back and get the next promotion. I want to be a vice president for sales or whatever roles you are and wherever you are. And those are some very, very, very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound goals. And one of the things I encourage people is a lot of people talk about in generalities, but this is the starting point. When you have a strategy, the output of the strategy has to be this. And anywhere in the world, you want to be comfortable with that aspect of it. And once you have the SMART goals, but you need to be ready for the VUCA environment. And in the VUCA environment, you need to move from the SMART goals to the fast goals. And all my experience in the last 17 years, I had a chance to work with over 300 plus small and medium sized businesses and coach several of the CEOs of the small businesses and entrepreneurs and stuff. This is one of the first thing we go back and have a discussion around and get clarity around these things. The first aspect of it is smart goals, and then as we go, we move them into the fast goal. So a lot of people have heard what a smart goal is, but not many people have heard what a fast goal is. The fast goal acronym stands for frequently discussed. So once we set up our goal for the next, most of the strategic plan looks for and calls for a 1 year goals and 3 year goals. And that is a good starting point. But now with the environment of VUCA, you want to look at it from a fast perspective. So what happens is you need to go back and frequently keep discussing about your goals. You're evaluating your performances. You're measuring what is that you set to do, and then making some actions appropriately depending on all the changes that are happening around your world. So what happens in the frequently discussed? It provides guidance for key decisions. So you're not looking at it only from 12 months, but you're looking at it from a VUCA perspective and see what are the complexities, what are the ambiguity that is coming, and how is that affecting our personal lives or our business lives, entrepreneurship lives, wherever you are and whatever you're looking at it, from which funnel you are looking at it. The second piece of it is it keeps employees focused on what matters most. So you're constantly looking at things and saying what is the most important and prioritized decisions that we need to work with. And then the third piece of it is links performance feedback to concrete goals. So you're constantly evaluating what are the action items you're doing, what are the strategies you're doing, and really provide the feedback for your concrete goals. And then the fourth piece of it is evaluates progress and inputs for course corrections. And this is the key part of it because in the VUCA environment, things are changing so fast and we need to go back and have some course corrections. So the frequently discussed part of it is like when you're driving and you have a construction site or something falls or an accident and you need to take a detour, right? Those are like your course corrections. And the second piece of it is we want to frequently discuss, but we always want to make sure people are motivated with it. So the ambitious piece of it is also very, very critical. You always want to have difficult goals, but not impossible goals. And that is one thing. There is a fine line between that. There is an art and a science to it of setting up ambitious goals. And what is the advantage of having that ambitious goals? It boosts the performance of individuals and teams, and it minimizes the risk of people overstating or understating. And the third piece of it is it forces broader search for innovative ways to achieve goals. And this is a key. Whenever you have ambitious goals and you're not sure how to get it, you're motivated to go back and try innovative ways. You're always going to go back and look at it and say, what else can I do to accomplish my goals? And that is what the ambitious goals does for individual and team performances. And the third piece of it, remember, we were talking about this smart goals, specific piece of it. And here, what we mean by that is you take the goals and you make them into specific concrete metrics and milestones. So in a smart goal, you set up a goal, but you're not looking at it from a process of accomplishing them. Here in specific, you're going back and looking at it and saying, hey, what are the concrete metrics I need to go back and hit? What are the milestones? And what are some of the activities I need to go back and look at it and work on so that we can go back and be hitting our goals? And this way, when you go back and talk about it, and the previous speaker was talking about accountability and execution in transformation, and this is where the accountability come into picture. So each one of the employees, each one of you know what to expect from you when they are very, very specific. And the second part of it, because of your frequently discussed and ambitious, now being specific, it will really help you to go back and see what is working, what is not working, and how do you go back and make the changes as required. And this way, the course correction and really going back and looking at it and monitoring the performance, you will boost the performance of individuals and teams. And the last piece, which is very critical for everybody in an organization, in a team, is transparency. Always, all of your goals and performances should be made public for all employees to see. If you are in a company, everybody should be seeing that. If you're talking about a team, everybody in the team should be aware of what those goals are and how are we performing against those. And what happens is we're all human beings. We always like to go back and have a little bit of a friendly competition, which always helps us to go back and boost our performance. It helps us to put some peer pressure to perform goals. And the other piece of it is it shows everybody how each one of them at an individual level or a team performance level support each other and how are they doing their activities piece of it. It helps you to go back and really see if there are any activities, any projects are redundant, and if they can streamline some of those things. So, to summarize these first two slides, start with your strategy, which gives you an output of a good, smart goals. And then, based on the VUCA piece of it, you slowly start using the fast goals piece of it from an execution perspective so that you can go back and make the changes and really execute and meet those goals. And again, when I say this methodology works for teams, for companies, for entrepreneurs, and for individuals as well. So it can be applied whenever, wherever you want it to be used. So one of the biggest things now you want to go back and look at it, right? So you have a VUCA environment. So much of it is changing. Are we changing appropriately? So basically, the change or die was used by Alan Dashman. He wrote a book on the same title in 2006. I was very, very impressed with what he has written and what was part of it. And I have adapted that from 2006. But before we get into that, Charles Darwin, basically from 1859, had this great quote for us. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And I'm sure most of you have seen the movie Jurassic Park. And when you go back and see all these dinosaurs and everything else, they were very, very strong. They were very, very big. But if you fast forward to today, you don't see any of those things. Though they were one of the strongest species, they could not survive because they could not keep up with the change. There were so many other animals which were so intelligent, but none of them survived as well. The only constant from all these years was the human being because we were much more responsive to change. And that really made us resilient, and we really could work and really go back and change and survive and grow. So, one message to all of you there who are all leaders, entrepreneurs, you should be one of the things is willing to adapt and shift. And as a leader, as an individual, every advance you make as a leader will require you to shift. And those changes, the shift, will happen the way you think, the way you act, and the way you lead. And some of you might be thinking, I'm only an individual contributor. How can I lead? No, you're leading yourself first. Every single person will be leading them first before they lead anybody else. So just remember that whenever you feel like uncomfortable with the change, and a lot of people, what they're saying about ChatGPT today and the progress it is going to make is going to put a lot of people in very, very uncomfortable situations. And the people who can go back and really survive and grow are the ones who can go back, adapt to all of these technologies, and be responsive to those and change appropriately. So, each one of you who are listening to this, make it a point, reflect for 15 minutes and say, what is something that I have changed in the last few weeks? That will really help you to go back and think and start working towards the change piece of it. So, one piece of advice I always give to all of my entrepreneurs is at least on a weekly basis, but at the minimum monthly basis, spend a few minutes and say what has been working, what has not been working, and how you can change things, and what do you need to change and adapt. And that is one of the biggest pieces I go back and work with people to do it. So, each one of you, that is one advice I would suggest for each one of you to think about. And this is one of the things when we talk about change. Most of the time, we observe people doing certain activities. We observe some of our own activities and we try to make some changes there. And that is what we call change based on what actions we have taken. So, what the experience and what I have noticed was whenever you go back and look at and try to make changes in the actions piece of it, the change can happen, but it is only small increments of change. A simple example, if somebody is coming and coming to work every day late, if you go back and just say, hey, you're coming 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late every day, you'll be reprimanded, you'll have a pay cut, or you'll be detained, paid, whatever the punishment are there, you might force them to come early, but you might go back and they would not follow through on that when somebody is not watching. So you can get some incremental changes. For a few days, they might be coming on time. But the biggest part of it is you want to go back and think through change from a mindset point of view. And what is the mindset change? You want to understand their beliefs. You really want to understand what are the assumptions. And the combination of understanding beliefs and assumptions and making change based on that will give you monumental and permanent change. And that is the biggest piece of it. A lot of people look at it from the actions, which is what I call the surface level change. And if you are making some changes and you're not getting the results, what I would recommend all of you to go back and look at it is, hey, how am I operating? What are some of the belief systems I work with? What are some of the assumptions I am making? And if you can make changes at those pieces, that is a mindset piece of it. Once you have your beliefs and assumptions changed, then your behaviors start changing. And based on the behaviors, you will start seeing some new actions that will result in the goals, whichever it is, qualitative or quantity of goals that you want to accomplish. So, from a change perspective, always go back and look at it. What are some of your belief systems? What are the assumptions you are making? If you are in sales, basically, most of the people in sales go back and make assumptions that my product is the best. And it might be the best product. But if you make an assumption and when you're talking to the customer, you're just telling about your products, but you're not paying attention to what is going on in their mind, then it will become very difficult for you to sell. If you take the time to really understand what are their belief systems, what are their assumptions, what are their challenges, and what are their perceptions, then the same product and the same knowledge you have will go back and give you a much faster result. So, this change mindset is very critical for personal and business growth. I myself have pivoted so many times in the last 35 years since I've been in the US. Even me changing from the corporate world, I was a senior VP for GE before I started my own business in 2008. And the first 2 to 3 years was a big struggle because I changed my actions, but I didn't go back and work with my beliefs and assumptions. So a GE is a big Fortune 500 company. I used to work there, and all my assumptions were based on a GE company, a Fortune 500 company. But I started working with a lot of small and medium sized companies. And when I started working with this, these people don't have the systems, they don't have the rigor, the tools, the technology, the knowledge that the Fortune 500 company comes. And for me to really understand that piece of it, I had to go deeper and deeper into my belief systems and the assumptions I made about the market and the small businesses. And fortunately for me, I had a couple of very good mentors and coaches to work with me. And by the year three came, things changed a lot. And today we are very comfortable and we go back and help clients across 25 different countries right now. And that is something which I tell each one of you. Once you start changing your mindset, you become very powerful and valuable for yourself and for everybody that you work with. And the third piece of it, and this is where you really want to be, and you need to look at it from two different levels. One of the things is most of the people, when you take about 100 people on an average, 3% of the people are the visionaries. Visionaries are those people who can see the future, very excited about the future, and they go back and create products and services. All the people who are creating new products and services, all of these people who are founders, who build multi-billion dollar businesses. These are the visionary pieces of it. But what we want everybody to be focused on is early adapters. The early adapters are the people who are really motivated. They would really like to change. They would really like to work with, but they ask a lot of questions before they do that. The reason is they really want to understand, and they want to understand why this change, how will it affect everybody else. So they're coming from an optimistic mindset. They want to go back and change, but they're asking questions to validate it. And that's how the whole change piece of it starts working. And if you are an employee, you want to be in the early adapter at least. Everybody is not fortunate to be a visionary piece of it, but anybody can go back and develop themselves to be an early adapter. And what do you need for that? Basically, you need to go back and look at it. What are your belief systems and what are your assumptions? And whenever I work with my leaders and business leaders, entrepreneurs, and stuff, I focus on the 13% first because they can provide the context for everything else. They are very, very excited about change. They are very, very excited about making a difference. And these people will be the first group trained and adapted and given the resources to go back and make the change happen. So see for yourself, reflect and say, are you the early adapters from a technology point of view, from any other aspect, whatever role you are in, whatever profession you have taken, you want to be the pioneer there. Ask a lot of questions. Make sure that is the right thing for you, for your family, for your business, for your team, but be open for that. And now comes the early majority piece of it. About 34% of the population fall into the early majority piece of it. And these are the people that are very comfortable with change, but they're not comfortable with risk. So they don't want to be the first one there and take the risk piece of it. So these are all the people. When the new software comes, they don't go back and adapt it eventually. They wait for a few months to see all the debugging is done, everything is stabilized over the 3 months, 6 months time frame. Then they go back and get it. These are some good people. The only difference between early adapters and early majority is basically they don't have the risk taking capability. They don't like the risk piece of it. And then comes the late majority people, and these are the people, they're also good people and everything else. They really don't like change and they just want to do what it takes to maintain that. They're not interested in change. But eventually they're looking at the early adapters and the early majorities, and they go back and say, you know what, I think this is okay and we might miss the bus. So they go back and slowly changing after you see most of your early majority people changing. And in this overall scheme, you will always have about 16% of the people who we call the laggards. So this is the toughest group. They are not only don't want to change, but they're really trying to see if they can go back and work with some of the late majority people to bring them into this group. So you want to be cognizant of it. They might be good employees, they might be good skilled people, but they really don't like change. So you need to acknowledge that piece of it and really pay attention to and see how they fit into the overall strategy of the company. So even if you have a 50 employee company, this is working for you. Even if you have a 500,000 employee company. So each one of you, depending on which you are, where your leadership is, you have something applicable here. But the biggest suggestion I have for all of you is think of the early adapters. That is the space you want to be so that you can really take advantage of what is happening in the world, change, adapt, learn, and grow. So the other piece of it, whenever you're going back and changing things, even as a business person or an individual, when we start planning things, when we go back and look at our strategy, right? Basically, it feels like it is like an highway. Oh, we planned very well. Everything is going to be a smooth ride. So that is the far from the truth you will notice when you start executing things. Even the speaker before me, he was talking about execution challenges. He was talking about Ram Charan. So 70% of the people, when it comes to execution, don't fulfill their needs. They don't reach their goals. The reason being is they start planning with a very, very smooth highway, but they get into the messy middle, and there it becomes a problem. So the messy middle is there are situations that come up that becomes challenges, obstacles during the change, or something changes because of VUCA and all of our best laid plans are changed. So each one of you, it doesn't matter what it is, a family goal, a personal goal, a career goal, as an entrepreneur, as a business, go back and plan and strategize as much as you can, but be aware of the messy middle. Be aware of the challenges that might be coming. Be aware of those that might derail you or slow you down. But don't give up. Be resilient enough and go back and tackle those things and be ready for those. So, what happens is if you don't anticipate things, then you're not very very comfortable you with the problems that come up. But if you go back and say yes, there is going to be a messy middle, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be situations, and if you are prepared for it, it is much more easier to tackle them and overcome those challenges. And that is one of the biggest things I would go back and say, especially the entrepreneur journey. The first early most of the businesses in the entrepreneur, when they start and they're small, they go back and make things happen because they have a lot of energy and enthusiasm and stuff. But depending on their capability, once they get into 5 employees, 10 employees, 20 employees, 30 employees, they get into the messy middle and they don't know how to handle it. And that is something which everybody who's planning to start their entrepreneurship or who's planning to go become a senior leader has to be aware of that piece of it. So the messy middle is a reality. It is going to be there for everybody. So be prepared for it, plan for it, and handle it with resiliency as and when it happens. And the other part of it is whenever you are in a business position, whenever you are a leader, and you go back and keep thinking about it, I want you to pay attention to the what is mental chatter is what are we talking to ourselves. It is the inner belief. What is your heart and mind talking to each other? What are you thinking about when nobody is there around you? All of that is mental chatter. And one of the most common thing is when we are very very successful, we get something done, we are very happy. But when you go back and have a challenge, the messy middle I'm talking about, if you go back and look at it, people start saying, hey, why is this happening? I'm a qualified judgment. A lot of those things happen within your mind. And all of the discussion in your mind is called the mental chatter. So be careful about that because that is something nobody sees that. At least in the US right now, we have so much of a mental issues, challenges, especially of the pandemic. There have been a lot of cases where mental challenges have been highlighted and people are getting a lot of treatment for that. One of the biggest reasons for that, again, I'm not a scientist on that field, I have not done data, but just through observations, watching to people and talking about it, secondary research, we put so much pressure on ourselves. And we're taking all of this in our minds. So the heaviest burdens that we carry are the thoughts in our head. So watch out for what are you thinking about? What are you regularly communicating with yourself? This is especially when nobody is external to you, nobody's sitting with you. When you're sitting by yourself in your office or when you're taking a walk, watch what your mind is thinking about. What are you talking about it? Because that kind of burden on yourself will really, really, really derail you from reaching your goals. So the mental chatter piece of it, really being aware of it, and then making sure that you're talking about the right things is very, very huge. So I tell each one of you, irrespective of where you are in your career, you might be a high school student, a college student, or a seasoned veteran with 35 years experience. Each one of us has their own mental chatter. So just be aware of it and make sure the mental chatter is not affecting you. That is one of the best way to for you to go back and change, learn, conquer, and grow. And one of the things about transformation, and this is one of the methodologies I go back and look at it, and this is built on the mental chatter piece of it. Whenever you're going through the mental chatter, whenever you're going through a negative spiral kind of a thing, you really want to go back and start focusing on what are you communicating and how are you communicating and what are the words that you communicate piece of it. So if you go back and look at it, when you talk about the right questions, your brain is very, very active and it is going back and helping you to come up and generate new ideas. When you're talking a lot of negative things, the brain activity reduces and basically you don't get a lot of value of it and you're stuck in your negative mental chatter. A simple example, let us say you're going through a tough time. When I go back and say, hey, I made a mistake, the brain doesn't know what to do and what activity to do. So it just be quiet. But if you go back and really look at it, mistakes help me learn. Mistakes help me make progress. Immediately, your brain starts functioning in a full, powerful way. It starts activating all of the neutrons in your brain and it goes back and says, hey, how can I help? How can I go back and see what can we do with this? So that becomes a very, very important piece of it for all of you to think through. So the words you use has to you are in a negative mental pattern. So the watch out for your mental chatter and start using more proactive words. If you go back and look at it, hey, this is too hard. I mean, there is no answer for it. There is nothing to look for it, right? But if the same thing you go back and say, hey, this might take quite some time before I learn and master it, then your brain will say, okay, there is time. Let us go back and see what we can do differently. So whenever you're going through a transformation, whenever you're going through a negative situation, whenever you going through a challenge piece of it, start looking at it from the words that go into your mind. What is the mental chatter? And what is the mindset you have? And then if you look at the curve which is going through, basically you go back and say, you know what? I give up. That is some of the people give up. Almost 80% of the businesses fail within the first 5 years. That's a significant amount of it because these are the first three steps that happen through when we are going back and starting a business. We get into the messy middle, then basically we start worrying about it and we have a lot of negative mental chatter. And then we go back and say, we're thinking the negative thoughts. And by the third stage comes, you go back and say, I'm going to give up. But at the same time, when you say, I give up, instead of that, you go back and say, hey, let me try something different. Let me try a different strategy. Let me go back and talk to somebody else who has been there, done that. And these kind of a mindset and these kind of mental chatter will start helping you to go back and have some activity there. And by the time you come here, you have reached what we call the pit, which is almost like a valley where you're traveling. You go down, down. And once you are in the valley of this loop of transformation, you go back and say, you know what? I need to do something. I need to use a different strategy. And then it'll give you a little more energy to start thinking differently. And then you might see one or two rays of hope, some little bit of a positive indication for you. That is when you go back and say, wow, it looks like this new idea is working. And this little bit of a positive thought comes into your mind. And that will start going back and giving you the energy you need. And then you want to watch out and say, oh, is this good enough? If it is good enough, then you have plateaued again. But if you go back and say, is this really my best work? As soon as you go back and say, is this the best work? You start looking at it for further improvement. And once you start looking for further improvement, you might have best practices, you might have ideas from somebody else, and they start working on this. So each one of you out there who's listening to this, and you are an entrepreneur, you are a student, you are a business leader and stuff, think of it from that. And the biggest question is, what is your mental chatter? And two, once you understand your mental chatter, how can you go back and get some more proactive thoughts? How are you giving and asking yourself some great questions in your mental chatter so that it makes you progress, makes you take different actions, make you learn something different and go back and accomplish that, overcome the challenge. It's very, very critical for all of us to go back and think that perspective. So the other piece of it in the mindset, this is something which I want everybody to go back and pay attention to is whenever you're in a negative spiral, whenever you want to change, you don't want to ask a question, why is this happening to me? Because there's no answer for that. Why is this happening to me? But if you take the same question and put it as into your mental chatter and say, hey, what is this trying to teach me? It is a simple change. Why is this happening to me? To what is this trying to teach me? Immediately you got so much proactivity there. What is this trying to teach me is very proactive. You'll go back and dig deeper into your root cause analysis to understand what is that it is teaching me. It might go back and say, you know what? This is not my strength. This is my weakness. Or I need to bring this kind of, there is a gap in my strategy. There is a gap in a skill set in my team. And then you start going back and looking, how do you fill those gaps? And this one statement, anybody, when you are in trouble, if you didn't get anything out of this presentation, just your mindset change from why is this happening to me to what is this trying to teach me is a game changer. It can transform your lives, it can transform your teams, and eventually it can transform your company. So, very, very simple, but very, very powerful statement. And all of this is part of your change mindset piece of it. So, remember one thing, your mind is a magnet. So what you think is what you get. I very, very strongly believe in that piece of it. I've been preaching it for the last 30 years with whomever I talk about. And this is a summary of that piece of it. If you think of blessings, you attract blessings. If you think of problems, you attract problems. So always make sure you look at your mental chatter. Always cultivate good thoughts and always remain positive and optimistic. Yes, when we have a tough time, when we are in the messy middle, it becomes very difficult to go back and keep positive and optimistic. But that is where you person to work with you. You bring in the right person to work with it. And you really want to go back and work from that point of view. So always think of it from that perspective and work from that. So your mind is a magnet and your mental chatter can determine your success or failure. So keep that in mind and plan according to that piece of it. So these are some of the five foundational things I talk about all the leaders and entrepreneurs. The first piece of it is continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn. Again, this is all part of your change and this is all part of your mindset. Continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn. And for me, that was the biggest piece of it. It was a result from 2008 to 2011, moving away from a corporate 500 Fortune 500 company like General Electric and starting a small company. I had to unlearn what I was doing at GE. I looked at the best practices, but I had to change those. And I changed those to go back and then unlearn all of those things and then relearn how to handle the small businesses piece of it. And those 3 years were very, very toughing. That was the messy middle in my own business life. If you go back and fast forward that today, I am very, very comfortable. And all my clients, we have a great relationships. So I have clients who have been with me for the last 16 years. I have clients who have been there for the last 10 years. I have clients who have been with me for 12 years. So most of my clients are staying with me for years together because of continuously unlearning and relearning. I do that and I provide more value. They do the same and they help grow their businesses as well. And the second piece of it is value yesterday, but live in today. And it's a very, very thing. We have accomplished a lot of things, but a lot of people go back and look at the past accomplished and say they're very comfortable with it. Yeah, it might help you to feel good, but the biggest part of it is you have new goals today. So you need to go back and focus on that and you live for today. So if you look at any sports, let us take soccer or cricket or anything else. If it is a soccer, yesterday you had a hat trick, you hit 3 goals and you won the game. That is value. We learned, we can go back and see why we won the match. We can do all the analysis. But again, we need to go there today and deliver the same thing. If we have a match today, we need to go back and really go and score those again. And that is what it is. So definitely focus on today and live for today. And rely on speed, but thrive on timing. And this is one of the biggest things. And especially when if you are an entrepreneur, you can relate to it is sometimes you're coming with products that are way, way early before the market is ready. Though you have the most brilliant product, you might have the brilliant service, But if the market is not ready for it, you tend to fail. So you want to make things happen fast, but ensure that whatever you're going, whatever you do, you need to go back and look at the timing of it. You need to thrive on your timing piece of it. So rely on speed, work on that piece of it, but thrive on timing. And this is very, very applicable from a sales perspective. A simple sales example is basically you want to sell your product there. It is very, very good. But if the client is not ready to make that decision, it doesn't matter how good your product is, how good your service is, what kind of a pricing would you give as well. Those are some of the things you need to go back and look at it. So the timing piece of it is very critical. One example I share with all my sales process with a lot of people is I gave a proposal to a potential client in 2010 and they didn't say accept it. And I've been in touch with them on and off and stuff. And guess what? 2019, the timing was right. I could go back and deliver an updated version of the same program 9 years later. So I didn't push for the speed piece of it. I didn't push for those people, but I kept in touch and I kept working with them. And 9 years later, they became my clients and they're one of my best clients. So the timing was very important. They were not ready for 9 years. Whatever I did, it didn't work. So each one of you think of it from that perspective. Always be comfortable with it. Think of it from that point of view and see if the timing is right for whatever you're doing. And the fourth piece is move forward courageously during uncertainty. And that is what the whole VUCA environment is. In the VUCA environment, there is a lot of ambiguity. There is a lot of uncertainty piece of it. So you need to be moving courageously. At least take one step. When I go back and talk about moving forward courageously during uncertainty, think of you driving your car in the night. Let us say you're driving 50 miles to reach your destination. But in the night, your car headlight is only going to show you the 50 feet or 100 feet in front of you. But still, you're moving courageously there. Do the same thing. You'd be remembering your goals, remembering what you want to accomplish. Your fast goals are smart goals. And you don't know how to get there, but at least take one step at a time. Just move in the right direction. And that would really help you to reach your goals faster. And number fifth, this is one of the biggest pieces of it is realize today's best will not meet tomorrow's challenges. In my GE life, that was very, very critical. And anything I do even today, that is very, very relevant. In GE, everybody said, hey, how much did you grow? Because the standard has increased. So your top performer in 2022 can be an average performer in 23. The reason being is they might have not learned, they might not have grown, and the new challenges are there they could not handle. And that is where the change piece comes of it. And you really unlearning and relearning also comes into that. So don't realize best will not meet tomorrow's challenge. So always go back and say your best today was great, but always ask and say, how can I change? How can I improve this? What can I do differently? And that is going to be the world, what we are seeing today. I will put a bet today, looking at everything I know about ChatGPT and the associate things, the world market is going to be very, very different in 3 years compared to today. How I operate is very different today compared to 6 years, 6 months ago. I have adapted so much of AI into what I do that it just gives me so much huge productivity savings. So each one of you, these are five foundational leadership and entrepreneurial skills I want you to start thinking about. It will really help you to reach your goals, become a very, very effective person as a leader, as a team member, as a company, wherever you're working and whatever you're doing. And one of the things to the expertise piece of it is most of the time we are very, very good at some and we are not aware of what skills we have. So unconscious incompetency is the stage where we go back. So we know what we know and we don't know what we don't know. And from there, you move on to the conscious incompetency. As soon as you get an heightened awareness of what skills you like, what do you need, and everything else, you're conscious about it, but still you're not an expert in it. You don't have the competency yet. Now you put the training, the thing behind you, at least to get to the conscious competency. And if it is really aligned with who you are and your skills and stuff, then you can keep on practicing and then you'll get to unconscious competency. And then if you are a natural at it, you become an expert. The reason this is very important is you need to understand your strengths, weaknesses, and limitations. There are certain things we everybody cannot do everything else. And that is what this is. So if it is very important for your business, you spend enough time to get to the conscious competency level and then get some experts to work with you. If it is completely aligned with you, then you can go back and become an expert. So if you look at myself, transformation, innovation, change, executive coaching, people development, these are all some things which are very, very passionate to me. I become an expert and I can go back and help so many people. But when it comes to operations, when it comes to talking about basically finance and accounting and tax and everything else, I'm very, very poor at that. So I'm at the conscious competency stage. I know enough to ask the right questions, to understand things, and then make a difference. So those are some of the things. Once you start changing, you can go back and really do that. If you don't have a proactive way of looking at it, then you go back and say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So you blame things on fate and things that are which you are not controlling. You cannot control fate, but you can really understand and come up with what are the competencies you need, what level you are, and work from that point of it. So very critical for anybody who wants to go back and change and transform their lives. And the other part of it is there is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And one of the biggest things you want to go back and look at it from a growth mindset is always focus on learning. Definitely, you want to think of keep on learning so that you can go back and make a difference. The second part of it is seek challenges. Be proactive about it. Love challenges. Just like I was saying, the early adapters, you want to think of it from there. Seek ongoing improvements. Grow from your failures. Learn from your failures. That is one of the biggest thing because we have more failures than successes. So we want to learn from that piece of it. And then sometimes you may not see the result. That's okay. But accept the work, accept the effort as the key to success. And the last piece, which a lot of people don't do, is learn from other successes. That's what I tell my children, all the people I work is, hey, you learn my mistakes, but make different mistakes. You don't want to make the same mistake what we have done, what the experts have done. Learn from them, overcome them, understand them, and make a new mistake. And that is what a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is very, very limited in its scope and approach, and it'll be very difficult for somebody to thrive with a fixed mindset. But when it is a growth mindset, there is a huge opportunity for anybody and everybody. And this is from basically Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a beautiful book. What it really says is just make 0.01% improvement every single day. Everybody thinks of going back and having a sixer in a cricket match or getting a hat trick in a cricket match or things like that. Don't worry about the big pieces of it. Even if you can take small habits, take small improvements every single day. And what James Clear tells in his book is 0.01% every single day for a year can make you 37 times better than what you are in a year. That is huge. Nothing else can be done. 1% better every day can increase your life and make you better by 37x. And the same thing, if whatever skill set you are, if you neglect it, you're not improving it, and you lose the value zero point zero 0.01 in 12 months, basically you come to zero. So all the value you had is lost. So think of it from perspective and go back and say, hey, how am I learning every single day? What am I doing? What am I changing every single day so that I can be effective for myself and everything that I'm involved with? So this is where I will stop. This is the last piece of it. Is a bird sitting on a tree is not afraid of the branch breaking because a trust is not on the branch but on its own limb. So anybody who's very, very good at it, who has developed a foundation, who's very comfortable with change, who's very, very comfortable with adaptation, who is willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn, they are building the trust in themselves, in their foundation, and their skill set that they're comfortable doing anything and everything else. So remember, change or die. That is what happens from there. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. Just have that mantra, and you will have an outstanding life.
Fantastic, fantastic.
So, any questions, comments coming? I was just making sure
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I think it's very, very interesting session, Rajesh. I think your session is so simple and straightforward and self-explanatory that all the questions got answered there itself. It's fantastic.
Okay.
You covered literally you covered the things in a so lucid and a very clear way, and it shows your knowledge and experience in this domain to help the organizations.
Sure.
Okay, that is fantastic. There are a couple of questions are there.
Sure.
The questions include, okay, so you said majority of organizations give up in the first 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
Okay, that is a usual case everywhere across the globe. Maybe in India, it's maybe little more, maybe little early. They give up in 2 years, something like that.
Okay.
So, what is your advice? What is your advice for such organizations? So that I just repeat it, so that people get benefit of it.
So, one of the biggest pieces of it is when people become entrepreneurs, they have a passion and there is certain aspect of the business they're very, very good at it. And that's the
Mhm.
reason why. Let us say somebody is a very, very good programmer, somebody is very good in technology, and they want to start a technology company. So they're good in technology. But if you really look at it, they might not know how to raise capital. They might not know how to go back and hire people. They might not know how to go back and do certain things from an operational perspective. And that
Correct.
realization, initially, when they
Mhm.
start a company, they need to be thinking and saying, hey, they remember the slide I was talking to you about unconscious incompetency to conscious competency. They need to see what are my strengths and what are
Mhm.
the weaknesses that I can go back and get somebody to help me with.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
The second
I
piece of
think.
it, go ahead.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Please. 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 Please carry on.
So even the second piece of it is they will go back and say, you know what, I want to save some money, so I'm going to do everything myself. That is the other mindset of startups. That is a
Exactly.
very good idea. But if you are going to have the potential of making it big, you don't want to worry about smaller expenditures, smaller things. So it should be a cost benefit analysis for everybody else. So, like the CEOs I work with, I tell them if your hourly rate, anything that you do is less than $1,000, you don't touch it. Delegate that
Mhm.
to somebody because you can find somebody to do it for cheaper than that. Because your time is more valuable, it is worth at least $1,000, $2,000 per hour. Because
Perfect.
now it puts a metaphor for them and say, oh yeah, I can get somebody to do it for $50 or $100. Why am I wasting the time? And the second piece is you can want to go back and bring somebody external who has been there and done that as a coach. Because when you are an entrepreneur, the place is very lonely. You can't tell all of your challenges to your employees. Let us say I have money for only two more weeks. I can't tell my employees. They'll be scared and they might leave. But if you have a coach or a mentor, they will help you brainstorm with you and give you some ideas.
Correct. Correct.
And those are
Correct.
some of the things everybody. I'll give you one example that is currently happening. I have a client of mine. Basically, he wanted to start a business. He started the business on January 4th. He's into civil construction,
Mhm.
but he hired me as a coach as of last July because in
Mhm.
June he decided that he wanted to start a business. He hired me in July, and between July and December, we went through all of those things: his strategic plan, all the challenges, all the upsides, cash requirements, every single aspect of it.
Mhm.
He started
Mhm.
his business on January 4th. His goal was $3 million in target for 2024. He is already at 5.2 million, and it is only not even 6 months.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Fantastic.
So that
Mhm.
piece of it, if people can take the time, rely on the right people, just plan for that, that will minimize a lot of these failures.
This is excellent advice. This is an excellent advice, Rajesh. In India, that's one of the major problem. Okay, so the
Yes.
people they need help. There is no question about it.
Yeah.
They know that they need help, but they see the advisory as an expense, not as an investment for them. Okay,
Yes, yes,
so all the almost all manufacturing units, they spend a lot of money on the equipment purchase or whatever, which is physical. They don't
yes,
mind buying it. But when it comes to an advisory, so they worry about each dollar or each rupee. So it is a mindset problem actually. Okay.
yes.
So how does that you address this for them? Any advice for them? Mhm.
So one of the biggest things I go back and look at it is a mindset issue. What you need to go back and work with them and make them realize is one thing: when you're making an investment, it is black and white. So you go back and say, hey, this is what my return is going to be. I buy this machine for 1 lakh rupees, and in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, whatever the time frame, I make so many products and I get my money back. What we need to go back as advisory people to talk to them is, remember, the critical equation for this ROI is the person working on that.
Mhm.
And then you
Correct.
go back and look at it, because decision making on black and white equipment, any capital capex expenditure is very easy.
Very easy.
But when you
Yeah.
go back and talk about the people, it is not very easy, because it is more of gray area. How do you deal with people? How do you work with people? How do you take advice? How do you give advice?
Correct.
And the second
Mhm.
part of it is, one is ego and one is fear of being caught without lack of knowledge. And what I mean to
Mhm.
that is, some people don't have the knowledge and they say, I don't want to expose this to other people. And I
Exactly.
see that much more prevalent in the Asian countries and Southeast Asia rather than the US.
Correct. Correct.
Because what they want to do is, I am in the top position, I need to have all the answers. That is the mindset these people are coming, all the
Mhm.
founders who are starting the company.
Mhm. You're
In the
right.
US, they go back and look at it and say, hey, I'm comfortable with this, but I don't know this. Let me get somebody to help me with this.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that mindset. So, what we need to go back and really understand with these people, whoever we are working with, is help them to realize that. And that
Exactly.
happens when they trust you.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So,
Correct.
once the trust is built, then they open up and then say, okay, you know what? Basically, this is the problem. I really don't know how to handle this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, that is something, it is a little bit of a mindset change and a little bit of an education point of view.
Fantastic. I think, Rajesh, believe me, in India, so almost all mid-size, smaller organizations, they need help. Okay,
Oh, yes.
uh,
Yes.
I can say from as a thumb rule that not even 5% of the company is taking help. Not even
Yes.
5%.
I
Okay,
agree with you 100%.
even they are reluctant to spend on IT applications kind of thing. So
Yes.
the consulting is something far away for them. Okay, so it's a
Yes.
tremendous opportunity to optimize businesses. Okay, and I think there is a I think what we are trying to do is we are trying to bridge that gap. Okay, through
Sure.
this conference and bringing the experts to the speak. Okay, and we share this. If they're attending live, that's fine. Otherwise, we share them and then we give them, guys.
Yes.
You listen to this. Okay, you might not have time to attend, but you can listen because the video recording is there. You can listen it, and then if
Yes.
you need any help, okay. So that's how we are trying to bridge that gap. Okay, because otherwise, with this inefficiency, it's not only about advisory; it's about everything else. So they will
Yes.
be a laggard, and it's not going to help them. It's not going to help the country, and it's not going to help anybody. Okay,
Yes.
so that's fantastic. So great advice, Rajesh. Thank you for joining so early from United
All
States. Thank you very much, and we wish you good luck. And we'll have more such sessions going forward. And
sure.
definitely would like to connect some industries here.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank
Anytime,
you, sir.
basically, I love working with entrepreneurs wherever they are and whoever they are. So definitely, anytime I can help and share my knowledge, help them, anybody, I'm more than ready to do it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rajesh. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
joining. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very
Bye
much.
bye.
Yeah. Yeah.